Summer is still surprised by what Kyle said about the fact that he would marry her if she donated her liver, part of her liver, to Lola. And she says, that's just crazy. And he said, well, right now he's feeling crazy, that he'll do anything to save Lola. And she loves him, she wants him, and he needs her to help Lola. So he's serious. He means it, that he would marry her. The court comes back to order, and Michael calls Tessa to the stand. He asks her, when did she first come across the video of the ladies taking the carpet into the car at Victoria's? And she said she was working at Dark Horse and was deleting some files and came across it then. He asked her, what did you do with it then? She doesn't answer. He says, well, if you don't remember, that he has something that could jog her memory, and if she does remember and doesn't want to talk about it, that she'll be held in contempt of court. Phyllis is in her office and pacing around the room, and she gets a buzz from her secretary and tells them to send in whoever's coming in. Carrie walks in and asks how she's doing and that she has a lot going on. Phyllis says that's an understatement and has her sit down. Carrie asks what's up, and Phyllis says she needs somebody to talk to because Carrie's the only one she can count on at the moment. Michael enters into evidence the letters that Tessa sent Victoria, Nikki, and Sharon, as well as an electronic trail linking the transfer of $250,000 from Nikki's account into one that could be traced to Tessa. So Michael asked her again, did you in fact blackmail my clients? And she says yes. And he said, did you not threaten them with something worse if they went to the police? And she said yes, but she said she would never do that. And he said that they were afraid of whoever did it doing something worse to them. And she said she never would do that. And he said, well, they didn't know that, did they? And in fact, the one who should be facing criminal charges is Tessa. Michael asked Tessa if she was afraid that Nikki and the Newmans would come after her for blackmailing them, and she said no. And he said, because you weren't afraid of them, why not? She said she knows Nikki and Victoria pretty well, and she knows they're not like that. And he says, you're right, they're not like that. And so he basically saying that, she wasn't afraid of them, and perhaps she made all this up and is in fact working with JT to take down the Newmans, and is even responsible for JT's death. Christine objects and says it's inflammatory and he's badgering the witness. Michael says he has no more questions for the witness. Christine stands up once Michael is finished and asks for a recess because in light of these new allegations, she needs time to process this, and the judge grants it. Phyllis is talking with Carrie in her office and saying that her testimony just went completely wrong, that she never meant for Christine to twist her words around and make it seem like Nikki intended to kill JT. But that's exactly what happened, and now Nick won't see it that way, that that's not what her intention was. And Carrie says she knows that. And Carrie said, but do you realize, really thought of what the implications for Jabot would be if the women get convicted? And Phyllis says, yes, of course. And then she wonders if Carrie's asking for herself, or did Jack put her up to it? Carrie says they're both concerned. And Phyllis says, is this going to be, she has a plan to deal with the fallout if that ends up being the case. And she wonders if is Jack and Carrie's relationship going to be a problem for Carrie and her's relationship. Summer's like, have you really thought this through, this marrying someone that you don't love kind of thing? And she asked, what are your actual feelings about it? And he said he'd do anything, even give up his life to save Lola. And Summer said, so this would be more like a transaction kind of thing. You shackle yourself to a loveless marriage for the woman you love. And he said, basically, yeah. And she said, why would you think I would want to do something like that? And he said, I'm just willing to sacrifice anything for the woman I love. And, and maybe she doesn't understand that. And Summer says, what? I'd be giving her my organ. I don't understand sacrifice. And he more or less alludes that she's more calculating. It's not necessarily for a good reason. And Summer gets very upset and says, nice to know how you really feel about me, that I wouldn't blackmail somebody into a loveless marriage just for the sake of helping somebody out. And, she's happy that she finally knows how he feels about her and makes this decision very easy. Her answer is no. Summer stomps away from the table and Kyle goes after her and he says, what do you need from me? And she says, I just want you to be honest about your whole relationship with Lola. That you can't do this huge thing until he's fully honest about the relationship, that it wasn't some fairy tale. And he says, you're right, we had problems. And she's like, yeah, like she broke up with you because of a purse. And he said, yes, they had money differences and the time differences. They want different things, that she's building a career and he wants to spend time with her. And then, of course, the whole physical aspect that she's not ready to sleep with him. And Summer said that, what was once charming became an obstacle that was hard to get over. And then she said, then we had the cabin where I kissed you and he said, I kissed you back. And she said, yes, doesn't it feel good to finally admit that? Michael's talking with Nikki and Victoria when Nick walks up and says, the testimony's good. It throws the light on Tessa as the potential killer instead of on Nikki and Victoria. And Nikki says, do you really think the jury would believe that Tessa killed JT? And Michael said they don't really have to believe it as long as they believe there's a potential other suspect. Mariah walks over to where Tessa's sitting at the back of the courtroom and asks her if she's okay, that she's sorry she had to go through that. And Tessa says she deserved it. And Mariah said, maybe the worst is over. And Tessa thinks that the worst is yet to come. Carrie tells Phyllis that she cares about Jack, but that she cares about the family too, or about the company too, and that it's not going to affect her feelings for Phyllis and the company. Christine bursts into Phyllis's office, and Phyllis is like, I'm in the middle of something, I don't have time for this. Carrie says she'll talk to her later and leaves, and Phyllis lays into Christine, saying, I'm not talking to you after what you did. You twisted my words around, saying and making it look like Nikki was a cold-blooded killer, and that Sharon and Victoria were her henchmen, and, it wasn't right. That's not what happened. Christine said she simply outmaneuvered her and anticipated what she said, and to get over it. And Phyllis says she's done. She's not getting back on the witness stand. This is in the rearview mirror. She has a company to run. And could Christine please leave? Christine then asks her to tell her all about Tessa Porter. And Phyllis says, oh, of course, I'll tell you anything you want to know about that grifter. Summer says now that they've cleared the air, now they can move forward with a clean slate, and Kyle's more or less agreeing with her. And she's saying she knows that he's not there yet with her, that he's the love of her life, and that if she believes if he gives her a real chance to make this work, that she can make him happy, she won't judge him, and she'll never try to change him, and that he'll really see that she's really the right one for him. And she basically says, okay, to prove I'm not trying to trap you, we'll stay married for a year. If this doesn't work out, then we'll have a divorce, no hard feelings. She agrees to have the surgery if Kyle agrees to give it a shot, and he agrees to that stipulation. Christine continues to question Tessa about the video and basically saying if it was so innocent, why would Nikki pay the money to have it given to her? And Tessa says she doesn't know. And she said, did the rug look like it was just a rug, or that there could potentially be a body in it? And Michael objects to that. And then Christine asks her about the night that Tessa came home and Victoria was in her apartment, which was Thanksgiving. And Christine said she got into her house without permission. And she said yes. And she said that she threatened her and that Tessa gave her back the money and also the videotape, the copy of the videotape. And Christine asked if she threatened her, and she said she threatened her with framing her for JT's murder if she didn't. And she said, how did she know you even had the videotape? And Tessa tells her that she had installed a camera in her apartment. And Christine said just like JT did to her. And Michael objects to that. Christine asked Tessa if she had any other encounters after the night Victoria broke into her apartment. And she said, well, she's seen Sharon because she's dating her daughter. And Christine said, are you afraid that the defendants will come after you because of your testimony? And she said, no. She said, then why are you holding back information? That the police department and the DA's office will protect her in whatever way they can. So she asks again, have you had any other encounters, like when they asked you about where JT's body is? And she said they asked her, but because they thought she might know, and she didn't. And Christine asked, how was that confrontation? She said it was intense. Christine asked, where was it? And Tessa says she doesn't know, she doesn't remember. And Christine says if that was the case and I was being asked where a body was that they accused me of moving, I think I would remember that. And Tessa says, well, we're different people. And Christine asks, were all three women there? And she said, yes, they were. Comes back to Phyllis's office and says she wants to finish the conversation, and Phyllis agrees to that. And Carrie says she's a bit surprised that Phyllis would question her loyalty, that she's been working very hard to help Jabot succeed. And yeah, she's serious with Jack, but that's not going to hurt her loyalty to the company. And Phyllis kind of apologizes and says that she's under a microscope right now with being a non-Abbott running the company and the whole trial, and even her ex not believing in her at the moment. And she wants to usher in a new era, the Phyllis era, and she wants to make new products that nobody else has done and something that Jabot has not done before. And Carrie's on board with that and says, how about instead of the Phyllis era, that it's the Phyllis and Carrie era? Summer again says that if it doesn't work out, they can get divorced, no questions asked, and basically says that he wants to chase after Lola his rest of his life. That's his problem. And he basically agrees to the terms, but he says he has a condition of his own. And she asked what that is, and he said, no husbandly duties. And she said, well, I don't want people to think that I coerced you into bed, or you thinking that. So she agrees to those terms. And she says she doesn't want people to know that she's Lola's donor. And he asked why, you don't want credit for it? And she said no, she thinks it's probably better that way, that nobody knows. And he said, well, then I think nobody should know that we got married right away either. And she said, well, I didn't say that. And he goes, oh, I see. You don't want people to know that this is a transaction. And she said, well, I prefer to think of it in romantic terms, that two people who are destined to be together found their way back to each other. And he said, it's a little fast, don't you think? And she said, hey, if that's how it happens, that people realize that they're meant to be together, why wait for the rest of their lives? Phyllis says to Carrie that she likes a woman who knows what she wants and goes after it. Carrie agrees that they can take the company to new heights. Phyllis says that she wants to continue doing what they're doing, and that Jabotiques is doing well, but let's kick it up a notch and make some fantastic products. And they agree that they're going to work together to make this happen, and it is the Phyllis and Carrie era. Christine asked Tessa that maybe she doesn't want to say anything because she really did have something to do with JT's death, that what Michael is saying is true. And Tessa blurts out, no, it's because they had a bag over her head and shoved her in a car against her will. So Christine starts to ask her about that night, asking pointed questions about what they were asking her. She feared for her life, which Tessa said, yes, she did. And Christine said, do you think the women used that fear to get the answers that they wanted? And she said she did. They did. And that they were yelling, and they eventually did take the bag off her head so she could see who the kidnappers were, which Michael objects to, but Christine says that's the definition of kidnapping. She was forced into a car against her will. And Christine asks, were all three women present? And Tessa says yes, they were, but Sharon seemed like she didn't really want to be there, that the others were pressuring her. Christine asks again if all three were there and participating, and Tessa says that they were. Christine asks then what did they do at that point, and she said they kicked her out of the car. And Christine asked what the temperature was, and Tessa said it was cold. Christine says, no further questions. During this testimony, Nick got up and left the courtroom. The judge says that she can step down, and Tessa walks out of the courtroom, and Nick is outside, and she says to him, well, you got what you wanted, I'm screwed. And Nick said, you got exactly what you deserve, Tessa. And she said, I didn't want to say any of that. I'm not the one who told Christine about the kidnapping. I don't know who did, and walks away. Mariah and Tessa are at Crimson Lights talking about the testimony, and Tessa feels bad about what she said and saying she was trying not to make Nikki and Victoria look bad, and that she tried to make it seem that Sharon was dragged into it. And Mariah says she knows that it's not her fault, but Tessa still feels awful about it, and Mariah holds her hand and says, we'll get through this. Phyllis comes up to Mariah and Tessa at Crimson Lights and says, you look like someone who's just been cross-examined. And Mariah says, how do you know she was even testifying? And Phyllis tells him that Christine came and talked to her, and she filled them in on a couple of details about Tessa, the blackmailer. And she tells Tessa, I told you I was going to get you back. It just took longer than she thought. And Mariah stands up and says to her, well, congratulations. You not only hurt Tessa, you also hurt your mom, or hurt Victoria, Nikki, and Sharon. because they found out about the blackmail and about the kidnapping and how Victoria got the money back. And Phyllis said, I didn't tell her any of that. She wasn't there, and she's not going to volunteer information. Tessa realizes that Christine tricked her into giving up more information than she wanted to because she sensed there was more to the story. Phyllis hands Tessa her coffee as she's leaving and says, I think you need this more than I do. Michael lays into Victoria and Nikki saying, how could you not tell me about the kidnapping of Tessa and how you got the money back from her? And they said they didn't think it would come out. And how did Christine know about the kidnapping in the first place? And Michael says maybe she's just good at her job. And he basically says, I don't know how I'm going to clean up this mess. I've never had clients lie to me as much as you have. Brittany says, I can clean up this mess because she has a witness. When she brings up Ray Rosales, the jury is going to forget all about what Tessa said. Kyle tells Summer that he has to be the one to tell Lola that him and Summer are married and that they're over. And he said that's a deal breaker for him. And she said, oh, no, I'm fine with that. But, once people find out we're getting married, her brothers aren't going to let you anywhere near her. And so he said, well, we better get going and scheduled surgery. She goes, well, can't we celebrate for a minute first and, have a drink or whatnot? And he said, Lola doesn't have a lot of time and she's getting worse every second. We don't have time to wait. So she said, okay, before we head to Memorial, I want you to do one last thing. Get down on your knee and propose. And he said, really? And she's saying that I'm cutting my body open for somebody I barely know, and this will take 3 seconds. And she said, I want to hear the man of my dreams propose to me. So Kyle agrees, gets down on his knee and asks Summer to marry him, which she says yes. Everybody starts clapping. Summer hugs Kyle, and Kyle looks a bit disturbed. Well, that's it for today, everybody. Thank you for watching. Give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another episode recap of The Young and the Restless. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.